Greetings again everyone, and today I'm checking out a pretty interesting new autofocus lens from Yongnuo, their 23mm f1.4 SDA DSM WL Pro. Its cost will be only $270, so for a lens of this kind, that's potentially quite the bargain. Well, if it's any good, of course. And I'd like to thank Yongnuo for sending me one of these for testing, although as usual, this is a totally independent review. It offers only an APS-C image circle. Here's what your image will look like on a full frame camera if you don't shoot in crop mode. And so, on APS-C, this lens is the full frame equivalent of 35mm, which is a moderately wide angle, extremely useful. And with its very bright maximum aperture of f1.4, it'll be great for shooting in darker situations and for getting noticeably out of focus backgrounds in your images. If I shot on APS-C cameras, then a prime lens like this would be just about my top choice for anything and everything everyday photography. The design of the lens itself is quite good looking here, and its build quality is very nice and metallic. At 350 grams, over 3/4 of a pound, it has a bit of weight to it though, and it's not small either. It's a metallic lens based on a metal lens mount with a weather sealing gasket and a USB-C port around the side with a rubber cover for future firmware updates. Then we get some controls, a customizable function button, and an auto manual focus switch, which can also be set to turn a wireless remote control on and off. The lens can be bought with an extra remote control, which allows you to adjust focus remotely, A to B focusing and adjusting focus speed, and apparently starting and stopping video recording. Interesting. Not something I need at all, but some video makers doing unusual projects might be interested. Then comes the aperture ring. A switch round the side enables you to set it to turn smoothly for video work or with nice positive clicks for still photography, a choice which I love to have. Then comes the manual focus ring, which is also metallic and turns very smoothly. The lens's manual focus response is quite smooth here. As you can also see here, the lens suffers from some focus breathing as you focus in and out, but it's nothing too serious. The lens's autofocus motor is quiet and accurate. In single-shot autofocus mode it works quite slowly, as you can see. However, set your camera to continuous autofocus mode and it suddenly becomes pretty fast. The lens has a 58mm filter size and comes with a plastic hood. It does not feature image stabilization, although the internal stabilization of my Sony camera worked perfectly with it. All in all, the lens's build quality feels very nice and its electronics work absolutely fine as well. So, let's take a look at image quality. I'll be testing it today on a 24MP Sony APS-C camera. In-camera corrections are turned on for this test. Okay, at f1.4, right away we are seeing razor sharpness and excellent contrast in the middle of your images. We also see a lot of purple fringing on contrasting edges as well, by the way. Let's have a look over in the corners. Okay, impressively we're still seeing some good sharpness here, although the corners are darker, and again we see colour fringing, this time magenta. Stop down to f2 for a tiny little boost in sharpness and contrast in the corners. Back in the middle, that purple fringing is mostly gone. Stop down to f2.8 and it's totally gone, and over in the corners we are seeing noticeably more sharpness, but still a touch of colour fringing. At f4 though, those false colours are gone, and we're treated to a perfect image from corner to corner. The lens stays this sharp down to f11, where softness creeps in due to diffraction, and for the same reason, f16 of course looks soft. Overall though, it's a very nice performance here. The lens is impressively sharp for a lower budget model, although that colour fringing on contrasting edges is a bit of a pain. Okay, let's turn off in-camera corrections and take a look at distortion and vignetting now. Without corrections, we're treated to somewhat strong barrel distortion. Vignetting is somewhat strong here, but at least it falls gently enough across the image frame not to be too noticeable. Stop down to f2 and then f2.8 for those corners to brighten up nicely. Next, close-up image quality, and the lens can focus a little closer than normal for an optic of this kind. At f1.4, close-up image quality is softer with lower contrast than before. Stop down to f2 for an improvement, and finally at f2.8, close-up image quality is totally sharp again. Let's see about the lens's work against bright light. As you can see, it's a bit of a disaster zone really. All kinds of flaring and glaring are visible here at f1.4 and quite opaque too. You should definitely shoot with a hood on this lens. If you stop down to f2.8, as I do here, then there's an improvement, but flaring is still clearly visible. Let's take a look for coma and sun stars now. It's relatively good news on a coma smearing front. There's almost none to be seen on bright points of light in the corners, only a touch of glaring. That sticks around until f2, but at f2.8 those lights look a little cleaner. When it comes to sun stars, well, already at f2.8 they're getting pretty strong here, which is great news. Well, if you happen to like sun stars, of course. As you stop down, as you might expect, they get even stronger from f5.6 down to f11. At f16 they're absolutely massive, so that's really positive. Next, bokeh. The lens can get you quite deeply out of focus backgrounds here, and they have two sides to them. Deeply out of focus backgrounds look pretty good to me, in fact I quite like them. However, transitional zones and mildly out of focus areas can look a little rough, with some green outlining on specular highlights. And finally, related to bokeh, let's take a look for longitudinal chromatic aberration. At f1.4 it's fairly strong, as you can see. At f2 and even f2.8 it's still pretty bad, although at f4 it's mostly eased off. Alright, overall, the Yongnuo 23mm f1.4 is a very nice, sharp lens with excellent contrast, good build quality and fantastic potential. That maximum aperture of f1.4 is addictively bright. Its two main weaknesses are some hefty colour fringing and pretty bad flaring when faced with bright lights. If you can get past those issues, then you have a very handy lens here for the money you're paying, so it does come recommended. Thanks for watching everyone, and if you regularly catch these reviews and want to support the channel, then check out my Patreon page down below, where supporters get all kinds of exclusive bonus content and early access to reviews. Ciao for now, everyone.
Nur weil du bei mir bist. Warum finde ich die Welt so schön wie noch nie? Uns beiden erklingt die Glücksmelodie. Ich sag dir's, nur weil du zärtlich mich küsst. Es schmolz der Schnee vom letzten Jahr, der Frühling ging als Sommer war, doch unser Glück bleibt immer da. Die Liebe, Liebe, Liebe ist wunderbar. Darum strahlen heut Nacht die Sterne so hell, die Luft ist so mild, mein Herz schlägt so schnell. Ich sag dir, weil du so nah bei mir bist.